We'll call the city council regular meeting to order for Monday, May 1st, 2006. Let's please stand. Pastor Filing from the First Congregational United Church of Christ will lead us in prayer.
Let us unite our hearts in a word of prayer. Gracious God, as we gather this evening, we ask thy blessing on the work of this council as it carries out its ministry of administration. Inform the hearts, the minds, and spirits of these members with thy vision of what our community can become in the seasons, the years, and the generations to come. As we witness the council's important work in the life of our city and community, we give thanks for these who serve and endeavor here. We pray that through their efforts, our city will continue to be a beacon of vision, promise, hope, and hospitality to all who pass this way. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnos.
Here.
Gisselbeck.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Meisenheimer.
Here.
Solberg. Here. Walder.
Here.
Wilson.
Here. Agenda item number 1 is a motion to approve the minutes of the city council meeting held on April the 17th of 2006. We have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Wilson. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 is ordinance number 06-08, establishing the zoning designation of an R3 multifamily residential for the Schmeling Outlot. Rick?
Thank you, Mayor Fox, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. This evening, we are having the second reading of ordinance 06-08 to establish, as the mayor indicated, the zoning designation for the Schmeling Outlot, located in, if I can find the legal description, Section 4, Township 117, Range 52R West, and that's located in the street address, which will bring this, which will help people locate this, is 131 North Lake Drive. We've probably, as a community, come to learn and know and realize that site as the home of Dakota Pump and Control Company Incorporated. They've moved that company to another location in the community and are seeking the ability to market that property. With that, perhaps we should open the public hearing and we'll go through this a little bit more here.
We'll open the public hearing then. Is there anyone to speak to the issue? Rick?
I might introduce it. Thank you, Mayor. This issue first came up with a petition for annexation and for zoning. The Plan Commission considered the petition for zoning that you are considering this evening along with the ordinance. You will recall that we had the first reading of that ordinance last time we met on April 17th. We are here this evening to take a few actions. We already had the second reading. We're in the public hearing. We will ask for a council action. In addition to those items on the agenda, I would like to take the opportunity, if you would allow, to revisit the annexation action that you took 2 weeks ago. So with that, the petitioner is Rod Redlin. Other interested parties are Linda Williams as a realtor and agent on this property and its marketing strategy. Matt Redlin has offered consultant and project manager services. Rodney DeYoung as well has helped out from Austin Engineering. I will note that David Redlin is in the audience this evening, so if we need to ask questions with specific regard to the property, he may be able to assist us. It is my understanding that Mr. Redlin has recently acquired this property under his name. The petition for annexation and zoning was dated March 17th. Again, it's Schmeling Outlot at the legal description, Section 4, Township 117 North, Range 52R West, located at 131 North Lake Drive. The request is for R3 multifamily residential zoning. The Plan Commission, again, it was a public notice hearing before the Plan Commission. This is a public hearing that was public notice in the Watertown Public Opinion. By ordinance, we've also notified, or at least attempted to notify, adjacent landowners. There were a total of 8 that by ordinance would be required to be notified. We have indication that an effort was made to notify all 8. 6 of those, we've actually received the certified green cards back. So with regard to the R3 multifamily residential zoning district, what are the general requirements for that district? Has a lot, kind of depends on its use. The area can vary from around 9,000 square feet for a single family residential structure on up to, it depends again on the number of units, for example, in an apartment complex, or under a special exception use, such things as commercial storage facilities would be site dependent. The minimum lot width, again, would vary dependent on use and varies from 75 feet for a single family use up to 150 feet for uses for residential structures that have 12 units or more. And the setbacks typically required are the front yard to be 30. The side will vary between 9 and 15, again, depending on use, and the rear is 25 feet. This is a large parcel, almost an acre, 0.83 acres. Its dimensions are 40 by 90 as platted in Cottington County. It is located in the Natural Resource District of Cottington County. Recall the last time we were met, we annexed this into the city with the condition that we come back and establish zoning, so it was annexed without zoning designation. So we are here this evening to talk about the zoning. Again, the request is R3. Note that the adjacent properties across Highway 20 are annexed, and we should annex Highway 20, and you'll find, you may have picked up on that in the resolution or in the ordinance that was prepared, that we are in fact going to zone to the center line of Highway 20 with this R3 or whatever zoning designation the council would choose. So again, on the lake side, Lake Compesca side, the zoning is R1 single family district. The adjacent county properties remain natural resource conservation district. The land uses there, pretty much as it sounds, open space uses for the preservation of those natural resources in that area. The property is located in our north growth area of the city's 2004 comprehensive land use plan for that time frame from 2005 to 2020. I will note that in that part of our community, our comprehensive land use plan is fairly silent, quite honestly. We didn't expect too much activity in that part of our community. This does seem like the right thing to do. Again, as we talked about the annexation, now it's a matter of fixing the appropriate zoning. I've already talked about Mr. David Redlin here has purchased the property, and he can speak more specifically to his intents there, but I have understood in a conversation with Mr. Rod Redlin this afternoon that the existing building will be removed, and over the next approximately 2 years a new residential facility will be constructed there that Mr. David Redlin intends to make his home. City electricity is still connected at the site. There is no city gas at this time. There's a private well for drinking water. You know, we had visited about what is the trigger point for, and this goes to the a discussion in a few minutes, what is the appropriate time to talk about connections to the sanitary sewer, and I'll cover that a little bit later. But as to the zoning, the Plan Commission made its recommendation for the R3 multifamily residential district in its resolution 2006-16, and I would bring their recommendation and a request that you pass favorably on ordinance 0608.
Is there anyone else to speak to this issue? David, is there anything you'd like to say? No? No? Okay. If not, then we'll close the public hearing and go to council action.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Is there any further discussion?
Just one question. In our packet, we had a drawing that showed a proposed building already on there. Is that,
Mr. Johnson, I understand that proposed building sketched on Exhibit B as to be an idea from a past
Okay.
brainstorming session, I guess, if you will.
All right.
But that is not the current proposal.
okay.
Any other questions? If not, then all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Rick.
If we could then, Mayor, if you would allow, we can talk, revisit the annexation issue a little bit.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, we talked about the annexation of this property, and it was passed, the resolution to annex the community, or this property into our community. When we talked, had reviewed the tape, and we did visit about what is the appropriate trigger, because at Mr. Rod Redland's request, at the planning commission level even, he didn't know how this property was gonna be marketed, what the time frame might be, and one of the things that goes along with annexation, of course, is the requirement to be connected to our city's sanitary sewer. And his request was, can you give me 2 years? Does it make sense? I mean, right now, the facility is empty. Does it make sense to expend the dollars at this point? And the plan commission suggested, no, there might be a better trigger point out there. We didn't get anything on the record. I would like to do that this evening as to when that trigger point might occur. And I'm visiting with Rod Redland earlier today. A couple ideas have come up, and I shared with him. He particularly likes the idea of when that site is going to be occupied and actually used. That should be the trigger. Prior to that occupancy occurring, the sanitary sewer has to be in place. The other thing, knowing a little bit more now, as I just learned this afternoon, that the existing structure on the property is going to be either removed or demolished. It's going to leave the site in one form or another, and something else is going to be rebuilt. We're thinking that demolition might be an option in terms of a trigger point, that the demolition will include the removal or the proper abandonment of that septic system on site, and then we can, along with the building permit, would also be the trigger for the installation of the sanitary sewer connection to our mains. So with that, just to get that on the record, and with in discussing this with Stanton, how do we get this out there so that the world knows about it? We'll just put our intent is to write a letter reminding Rod Redland of our discussion, and then we'll share that with Mr. Redland, our building permitting division, and the wastewater plant. So.
Okay, then, so we're not requiring any council action, is that correct, Rick?
No, if you, Stan, any advice there, is it necessary?
No, I just think that if the council approves, then my expectation is that if the resolution that you've just approved and the ordinance rezoning the property will be provided to the applicant, along with a note from the planning and zoning official indicating that as we talked about, there is going to be the need for some trigger with regard to connection to the sanitary sewer as well as the removal of the septic system on site, and it's the city's expectation that the septic system will be removed at the time the structure is demolished or removed, and the connection to the sanitary sewer will be in conjunction with the building permit. So I think we're all on the same page, and we'll just communicate that to the applicant in writing.
So noted.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Agenda item number 3 is ordinance number 0609, amending section 15.0402 regarding licensing of plumbing contractors and pipe layers. First reading, Stanton.
Yeah, we passed.
Stan, if I was correct, we did vote that, and then we made a note of record that the trigger would be the demolition of the building. Is that correct?
Yeah, the second reading, as I understand it, was just approved, and then Rick wanted to revisit with you folks about the annexation resolution that you approved at the previous meeting.
And so we're okay as far as, okay, very good.
Yes. Okay, Mayor, you introduced item number 3, and I have very little to add. This is mainly housekeeping, but the question has come up in the finance office a couple of times at the start of this construction season with regard to folks who are licensed as plumbing contractors, whether or not they also have to obtain an additional license as a pipe layer. We all agree that we know what the ordinance contemplates, but because it wasn't expressly stated in there, this is just a housekeeping, and I certainly hope at second reading you recommend approving it.
Okay, very good. Agenda item number 4 is first reading of ordinance number 06-10, the prohibiting the use of dynamic engine brakes. Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. As the members of the council that are on the safety committee recall, back in January, you recommended that I prepare the ordinance that's before you tonight that's going to do just that. It's going to prohibit dynamic engine braking, or Jacobs brakes as they're more commonly known. That was the recommendation of the committee, and I've certainly seen these ordinances in various communities in South Dakota, and so the one before you is certainly similar to those that you've probably seen in other communities.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to item number 6 then. Excuse me,
Mayor,
Nancy.
I just had one comment, because I know a lot of people are going to be glad to see that ordinance, but now it's going to come the enforcement issue. how is that going to be enforced? I mean, the police are almost going to have to be there to see it, or it's going to have to come from a signed complaint, correct?
That's correct, Mrs. York, and I thought about this today. No different, I guess perhaps if a motorist were to just pause when they approached an intersection and didn't come to a complete stop. If law enforcement isn't there to see it and a citizen doesn't sign a complaint, arguably it would go unenforced. Obviously, this will be a little more obvious because it'll be audible, but I'm sure that there are a number of moving violations that probably occur on a daily basis, and if law enforcement doesn't see it and somebody doesn't complain, it's hard to enforce them. You're right.
But on ordinance like that, there's a difference in whether they got mufflers on the trucks, whether they have mufflers off the trucks, whether they've been modified. There's a lot of difference in the noises and stuff like that. I had one trucker ask about the fact that whether it was lawful to be able to do this, because it is a safety device. And Stanton, as far as we know, it must be because there are other communities that are doing it. But if I was to, and I would, no amendments done tonight, but I would like to see either something to the effect of a muffler on there and a noise ordinance that we already do have, whether it has any connection with that. I'd say these boom boxes make more noises than the Jake brakes. That's what I'd say. But I realize that sometimes the guys do make it a lot noisier than what they need to be and stuff. And so, and also they were talking about funerals at the Catholic cemetery when the guys come down the road there. Why, there are times in the middle of the night when people are trying to sleep and they get the windows open. So there's reason for complaint, no doubt about it.
Your Honor, I would like to rise to a point of inquiry. Isn't discussion supposed to come at the time of the second reading?
Stan, are we,
Well, we're not having a public hearing, but Mayor, I guess to the extent you as the chair of the meeting want to allow a little latitude to have some conversation, I don't necessarily know that I'd call it out of order, but it's certainly your prerogative.
okay.
I have a question. Does this fall under what category of misdemeanor?
Well, there's a distinction under the law, George, though subtle. Ordinance violations are analogous to Class 2 misdemeanors, but they are just that. Under state statute, they're an ordinance violation. The maximum penalty for an ordinance violation is a $200 fine, 30 days in jail, or both. Typically, what I've done every year since I've been here and did in Rapid City is I provide the presiding judge, it's Rodney Steele presently, but a fee and bond schedule. Every citation that Watertown police officers typically issue on an annual basis, I go through by section, by title, and with the help of law enforcement, we propose what we think is a reasonable fee and bond schedule for the court to adopt. That way, each time a motorist comes before them for a stop sign violation or a speeding violation, the court doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. They have a fee and bond schedule that tells them exactly what the fine amount ought to be. I will confess that until this ordinance becomes effective, obviously we haven't established what we're going to recommend ought to be the appropriate fee and bond for this particular violation. It's going to be something, it can't be any more than $200, and the fine can't, or the punishment can't exceed 30 days in jail. So it'll be somewhere less than that.
We're just talking about the city ordinance, within the city limits, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Mayor, it's my understanding there's also gonna be signage on 212 and 81.
That's
east,
correct.
west,
The
north,
DOT
and
is going to
south.
provide signage.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
And it also agreed to put signage right there by
By the
St. Mary
cemetery,
Cemetery.
And forgive me, Mayor, for just interjecting, but to Tuffy's point, I do note that the ordinance does include an exception. So if it's necessary to avoid imminent danger or something like that, vehicles that are equipped with this will still be able to use it as a safety device. So we're not eliminating that application. It's just, just to slow down just for convenience sake. That's what it's trying to prohibit.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on, agenda item number 5 is resolution number 06-27, approving the repeal or carryover of capital outlay expenditure appropriations from the 2005 fiscal year budget. Tracy?
Thank you. I would mention that this resolution does come with a recommendation for approval from the Finance Committee. Under the city's home rule charter, each year when we appropriate funds, those appropriations that are for capital expenditures do not lapse at the end of the year as all of our other budget appropriations do. In fact, those capital appropriations remain in force and effect until either the funds are expended, the budget is revised or repealed. And the intention of this resolution then is to identify those capital expenditure items from the 2005 city budget that we'd like to carry over and continue in force for the 2006 fiscal year, and all other capital appropriations from 2005 would be repealed. So those that you see listed in the resolution will be carried over and remain in effect, and all other capital appropriations would be repealed as they are no longer deemed necessary. Any questions at all?
Now could I have a motion, please?
So move.
So moved by Alderwoman Walter. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6, approval of amendments to the Personnel Policy Manual. Shauna?
Thank you. What I have here tonight is some proposed amendments to the Personnel Policy Manual. We do this once or twice a year, kind of on an as-needed basis. The amendments tonight involve quite a few just kind of cleanup issues, and I'll kind of go over them one by one. Article 5 in regards to the performance evaluation, this was just some cleaning up some language in there. Some job titles have changed over the last few years, and also it kind of takes into consideration the way we do our evaluations now via electronic format instead of sending everything out paper. So this kind of incorporates that into the policy. The next change that we have is involving exempt compensatory time. Basically, the policy before did not allow for, we didn't specify those folks that work more than a 40-hour work week, saying that those over the 40-hour work week would then earn comp time, as opposed to, we didn't mention that the fact, like the police department who works 45 hours, et cetera, that after 45 they'd earn comp time. So it was an understood matter, but it was just not clear in the policy. The next item we have had to do with how we handle the carryover vacation at the end of the year. We just here again kind of cleaned up the language. We're just changing a little bit the way that's handled as far as the notification. In the past, employees had to notify finance office by the 10th of December as to what vacation they take to the end of the year, and then we'd back it in, back it out. Now we're just going to do a nice clean cutoff. It's going to be the same procedure. Anything over the maximum carryover will still be eliminated. It's just we're going to account for it over the 2 months instead of trying to do everything in December and then reversing everything in January. So hopefully it'll make it a little cleaner process. In effect, it's not really changing any policy per se, it's just more procedural. The next item, we did add a new policy explaining how we will handle benefits when we end up with a leave without pay situation. I don't know if you were in the Finance Committee will recall we had that issue this past year where we had an incident where an employee was gone on an extended approved leave without pay. We weren't exactly sure how to deal with some of the benefits. The policy that we've drafted here that we're recommending deals with if they're gone for a 17-day period, and that's a consecutive 17-day period, which would take them out of here for more than 2 weeks. At that point, then we've been looking at accrual of their vacation, sick leave, time and grade, et cetera, that after they've been gone that long. And that's kind of the way we handle benefits in general. If you're here before the 15th, then you can earn your longevity for that month and et cetera. So it is consistent with the way we currently handle benefits other ways. This pretty much puts that new policy in writing. Another policy that we've added this year, added to this proposed amendments, has to do with an administrative leave. In the past, we haven't had anything that would allow to put somebody on a leave with pay. So this new policy will kind of cover that. It could be anything from, say an employee or a department head is accused of something. This gives us some time to sort out the details, do an investigation. It could also come into play if there was an incident in the police department and they had to take some time to investigate it before they allowed the person to come back on duty just to make sure that they were all fit for duty and ready to go. So this will allow for that type of a leave. The next one that we had a change to was just on personnel records. Here again, it was just a lot of cleanup, getting rid of a lot of extra verbiage that we really didn't need. So the policy kind of complies better and is less wordy with what we're actually doing. Does anybody have any questions on these? These do come to you with the recommendation to pass from the Finance Committee. That's
We
it.
have a motion then for the, so moved by Alderman Gizelbeck and seconded by Alderman Garnos. Is there any discussion or questions then? If not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Shauna. Agenda item number 7 is the Police Department Budget Contingency Request, and I'll turn that over to Chief Vitek.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I've prepared for you a copy of a PowerPoint that was placed on your places that was shown to the Finance Committee on April the 18th. A request is being made to hire one patrol officer effective July the 1st of 2006 and one school resource officer on August the 24th of 2006, which is the beginning of our school year. This request, if granted, will increase the number of our patrol officers to 17 and will increase the number of our school resource officers to 2. The total amount requested from the contingency fund is $39,400 to cover the cost of the 2 new officers. This total includes approximately $8,500 that will come from the school district for the second school resource officer. Thank you for your consideration, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them. And I also have with me our school resource officer, Tim Toomey, and the assistant principal, Troy Taranes, who's also available to answer any questions that you might have. We met with the Finance Committee on April the 18th, and they've approved this recommendation.
Do we have a motion then for the approval of the 2 additional patrol officers or denial?
I would make that motion.
Motion by Alderwoman York, seconded by Alderman Solberg. Is there any questions or discussions on that?
I have just a short comment, Chief. I don't think you're going to find any more friendly person to the police department than myself. Over the years, we've worked with the police department very closely and in the courtroom and other places. One of the things I noticed in your presentation is that I think right now there are 15 patrol officers and 15 officers, if you will.
16 patrol officers.
Okay, 16 or 16, 15 or whatever it is. It comes down to 30 plus or thereabouts. I think one of the things we have to guard against, and I'm sure you know as well as I do, that in government, bureaucracy is one of the problems we have to guard against. And I think we have to really watch that in the police department, because it's so easy to take your very best people, put them inside, and have them pass papers back and forth. And I think that's a huge mistake, and I hope that doesn't happen in our department. I think you have a very good department, and I think you have very good officers, and I think you have very good patrol people. But at least to my way of thinking, the better people should be out on the street, and the people that you think are better bureaucrats should be inside. So yeah, I'm going to get myself put my foot in my mouth and have the red light go up as I'm on my way home. That happened before one time with another fellow in the police department. But I hope, I really honestly hope that we can guard against getting too cosmopolitan, if that's the word. So take it for what it's worth.
I appreciate that, sir.
Thank you.
I also have a comment. A few weeks ago, you held an event out at the event center, targeting mainly the high school kids and the problems we're dealing with up there. I was so glad I came that night. I was so glad to see so many parents there that night. I appreciated Officer Toomey so much and the words that he had for those parents. And people went out of there really feeling like they had a contact that they could make. And when he said to those folks, I'm on 24/7, just give me a call. To me, that showed extreme dedication. And if you remember some of the comments that night, we talked a little bit that night in public about about another officer at the school. Overwhelming support, much applause went up. And I assured the folks there that night that the council would be listening to that. I think it's a smart thing. Your other officer that you're asking for, I'm certain that they'll be kept busy too. And for the school, I am just so 100% behind that. I think there's not enough that we can possibly do for those kids to help keep them safe and get them on the right track. So I applaud your efforts very much, all of you.
Well, thank you very much, and for the listening public, we've had 16 patrol officers for 10 years now. We haven't increased the size of that. However, last year we did downsize our upper management staff when we eliminated one assistant chief's position. So I think we are cognizant of your comments, Mr. Heller. Thank you.
And I think the other item that the general public should be aware of is with the new requirements at the airport, I mean, we in essence almost have a full-time officer equivalent spending time at the airport providing security because of the TSA requirements, and that's one less officer that we can have on the street. And so part of this is in reaction to that, and we are funded by the TSA to
That's
provide
correct.
that type of security.
That's correct. The TSA money that we receive has been going into the general fund, and we've been providing that service with on-duty officers. That's correct.
And the numerous phone calls that I received in regards to the speeding that's being done on Highway 212 and on 81, and I think that this is going to help with that issue. So,
Appreciate that support.
anyone else would like to comment?
I don't have a comment, Mayor, just to point out, you did not have the specific information in your agenda packet. I did put a sheet on your desk before the meeting tonight. You should have showing the breakdown of that $39,400 that the Chief VTech mentioned. It's all going into salary and benefit accounts. So if you have any particular questions on that, I would address that.
Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief VTech.
Thank
Item
you.
number B is the laser LiDAR replacement.
Yes, sir. In reference to those speeding complaints that we've received on 212, we're requesting money from the contingency fund in the amount of $3,490 for a LiDAR radar. A LiDAR radar is one that we use specifically on 212 for traffic that's congested. The officer needs that equipment. The one we had was 10 years old. We checked with the manufacturer. It would have cost us about $1,200 to replace that. We didn't budget for it. It's one that the officers fight over so that they can run enforcement on 212. And so we're here tonight asking for that. We have tried to grant monies, but we struck out on that. So that's the reason I'm here before you tonight, asking for that money.
Mayor, excuse me, before you call for a motion, I would just suggest rather than the $3,490, if we just make it a nice round $3,500, I would appreciate that.
I'll take that. $3,500.
There you go.
Could we have a motion then, please?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further discussion or questions? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
VTech. Item number 8 is the approval of the fiscal year 2007 budget schedule. Tracy?
Thank you. The proposed budget schedule is in your agenda packet. This has been reviewed by the Finance Committee and comes with their recommendation. This is something that we do each year so that the council and department heads all know up front kind of what the timetable is in terms of the process that we'll use. It's virtually unchanged from a year ago. We did move up the timetable in requesting revenue estimates from departments, but that really is the only substantive change in the schedule. Otherwise, things will flow as they have in the past number of years.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Could I have a motion then for that approval?
I'll move.
So moved by Alderman Giselbeck and seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9 is the acknowledgement of a notice to conduct a raffle by the Connington County Democrats. Could we have a motion to acknowledge the raffle? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10 is the approval of applications for abatement or refund of the 2004-2005 taxes for Lot 1 Building Products Incorporated subdivision in the amount of $270.86. Could we have a motion then for those refund of those taxes?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Johnson. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Wilson. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11 is authorization to advertise for bids for the purchase of a street sweeper for the street department. Mike?
Good evening. That's just what that's for, is to ask permission to go out for bids to replace the 1996 street sweeper.
Could we have a motion to that effect? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Item number 12 is a motion to approve the bills and payroll and authorize payment. Could we have a motion, please? So moved by Alderman Heller. A second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 13 is the open. Is there anyone that has anything before the open? If not, then we'll go to item number 14, old business. Item A, a report from our ad hoc sign committee on the ordinance number 05-17. Brad?
We will not be bringing that before you tonight. We've been having some email discussions, and I've met with a number of people that have particular interests in relation to the sign ordinance, and have come up with a few proposed changes based on those conversations. And we will be getting a revised ordinance out, and then we will be setting a meeting probably within the next week of the committee. At that point, we'll be notifying the media that committee is going to be getting together, so that anybody that wants to come and address the sign issue one last time before it comes back to the council will have that opportunity. We anticipate that we'll bring that back to the committee, or the full council at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Then we'll move on to item number B. Is any other old business? If not, then item number 15 is the new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Item number 16 is liaison member reports. And we will need to go in executive session to discuss some contract negotiations and personnel matters, and I would ask for a motion to go into executive session. So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will go to executive session.